Nimzowitsch defense declined, Williams variation, 3.d4 Nf6 4.Nc3 g6. Sudden a close game that was lost by a mistake. That game was pretty competitive. The opening was balanced. White overpowered black in the middle game. The players battled pretty evenly in the end game. The Reti is a less common but flexible opening that controls the center with the knight before committing a pawn. The d4 and e5 squares are under the control of nc6, which advances the knight toward the center. In addition to controlling the e5 and c5 squares and giving the dark squared bishop room to grow, d4 takes up space in the center. The bishop is prepared to grow into a functional square. The bishop will be better off as a result of this. That's good. This makes winning a pawn a possibility. It is ideal. The pawn on e4 is supported by nc3, which also controls the d5 square and advances the knight toward the center. That's good. g6 prepares to fianchetto the dark squared bishop to g7, where it will sit on the long diagonal. It is an inaccuracy. By positioning the bishop on a potent diagonal, this fianchettos the bishop. It is the final book action. A pawn kicks the opposing knight, forcing it to move or risk being captured. It is ideal. The knight is thus brought to safety. It is ideal. This develops a bishop off its starting square, getting it into the action. It is best. Castling gets the king to a safer square, out of the center of the board, while also developing a rook. Castling kingside tends to be safer because the king is further from the center. It is excellent. Castling develops a rook, while also moving the king to safety. Castling to the same side of the board as the opponent tends to lead to less sharp positions as compared with opposite side castling. It is good. This suggests kicking a bishop. It is quite good. The best choice is this one. It is ideal. The game was almost evenly matched, but black is now worse. It is incorrect. By doing this, a queen moves off of its beginning square and into the action. It is quite good. While not a mistake, that is also not the wisest course of action. That's good. The rooks are linked by this, making it easier for them to work together in the future. That's good. The knight becomes more active as a result, gaining control over more of the board. That's good. A rook enters the action after developing outside of its starting square as a result. That is good. This keeps the material balance in check with good commerce. That's good. Backs off. It is ideal. By growing a bishop from its initial square, this activates it. That's good. It's all right. That's good. By moving a rook from its starting square, this activates it. This poses a risk of winning a pawn. It is ideal. This prevents the adversary from winning a pawn. That's good. This defends the pawn that was attacked. It is ideal. Although white had the upper hand, the game is now almost even. It is incorrect. Although the score was nearly equal, white now has the upper hand. It is incorrect. This suggests exchanging items of equivalent value. That's good. The game was almost evenly matched, but black is now worse. It is incorrect. This is an equal trade. This is the only move that works. It is a great move. In comparison to the right pick, this is the incorrect piece to capture with and results in a loss of content. It is incorrect. This maintains the balance in material with a good trade. This is the only good move. It is best. Recaptures. This threatens to reveal an attack on a queen. It is best. The knight now occupies an outpost, a secure square in the opponent's territory. This is the only move that works. It is a great move. This displays a queen attack. It is ideal. That was a great move and very hard to find. This is the only good move. It is brilliant. This misses an opportunity to capture a pawn that was threatening to win material. It is a mistake. That queen was unchained. It is ideal. That's a decent move. That's good. Backs off. It is ideal. This eliminates a threat and captures a pawn. It is ideal. Recaptures. It is ideal. Backs off. Black is losing because the endgame has begun. It is ideal. A pawn that was being attacked and had no defenses is now protected by this. It is quite good. Very precise. It is best. This exchange is fair. It is ideal. Perfectly on point. It is ideal. While not a mistake, that is also not the wisest course of action. That's good. What I would have advised is that it is ideal. By moving it from the back rank, this activates the king in the endgame. It is quite good. It's alright. That's good. This is not the best approach. It is incorrect. Not the finest, this. It is incorrect. The best choice is this one. It is ideal. That's a decent move. That's good. While not a mistake, that is also not the wisest course of action. That's good. The knight is thus brought to safety. It is quite good. This moves away from the knight in shining armor. It is ideal. In the endgame, an active king is essential, and removing it from the rear rank is the first step. It is quite good. A wise decision. It is quite good. The bishop is now on a square that is more secure. It is ideal. Among the best actions. It is quite good. A powerful play. It is quite good. Very precise. It is best. Perfectly on point. It is ideal. It's alright. That's good. What I would have advised is that it is ideal. The best choice is this one. It is ideal. That's a decent move. That's good. That is a logical response. It is quite good. This shifts the bishop to a square with more activity, giving it greater scope. That's good. While not a mistake, that is also not the wisest course of action. That's good. A wise decision. It is quite good. Among the best actions. It is quite good. Very precise. It is best. It's alright. That's good. Recaptures. That's good. A powerful play. It is quite good. The bishop is currently located at an outpost, a safe square within the opponent's domain. That's good. It was a free pawn there. It is quite good. That is a logical response. It is quite good. That's a decent move. That's good. Perfectly on point. It is ideal. What I would have advised is that it is ideal. This avoids the knight's check. It is ideal. A wise decision. It is quite good. The best choice is this one. It is ideal. The rook is now on a square that is more secure. It is ideal. Among the best actions. It is quite good. Very precise. It is best. This keeps the material balance in check with good commerce. It is ideal. This exchange is fair. That's good. This moves the bishop to safety. This threatens to create a passed pawn. It is good. A powerful play. It is quite good. This keeps the material balance in check with good commerce. It is quite good. Perfectly on point. It is ideal. What I would have advised is that it is ideal. The rook is now on a square that is more secure. It is quite good. The moved pawn advances toward its objective. It is ideal. That is a logical response. It is quite good. A wise decision. It is quite good. Among the best actions. It is quite good. The knight is now on a square that is more secure. It is ideal. The moved pawn advances toward its objective. It is ideal. The best choice is this one. It is ideal. A powerful play. It is quite good. The knight is thus brought to safety. It is ideal. This moves away from the knight in shining armor. It is ideal. The knight is now on a square that is more secure. It is ideal. This moves away from the knight in shining armor. That's good. Very precise. It is best. Perfectly on point. It is ideal. While not a mistake, that is also not the wisest course of action. That's good. It's all right. That's good. This avoids the knight's check. It is ideal. The knight is thus brought to safety. It is ideal. There were worse maneuvers, but there were also much better ones. It is incorrect. What I would have advised is that. It is ideal. That is a logical response. It is quite good. This misses a chance to win a knight. It is incorrect. The best choice is this one. It is ideal. Backs off. It is ideal. Very precise. It is best. A wise decision. It is quite good. Among the best actions. It is quite good. Perfectly on point. It is ideal. What I would have advised is that. It is ideal. A powerful play. It is quite good. This requires an outpost, a square that is currently in play where a pawn cannot push the bishop off the board. It is quite good. The best choice is this one. It is ideal. That's a decent move. That's good. Very precise. It is best. This moves the checking rook farther away. It is quite good. That is a logical response. It is quite good. A wise decision. It is quite good. One of the best moves. It is excellent. Sudden a close game that was lost by a mistake. That game was pretty competitive. The opening was balanced. White overpowered black in the middle game. The players battled pretty evenly in the end game.